Welcome to masteringinlogic.com's quick tips, no nonsense random tips that I think you might find useful. Maybe. In this quick tips, I'm going to show you how to make a dirty bass in the style of Galantis. A bass sound that's found in many styles of electronic dance music. Dirty bass is often referred to as the type of bass that either has a lot of distortion or many discordant overtones. We're not going to create anything too discordant here, but we're certainly going to add plenty of overdrive and harmonics. What I'm going to create is commonly found and would fit into many styles: grime, dubstep, drum and bass, and other forms of electronic dance music. Ultimately, it's up to you to take these ideas and then tweak them to your liking and style. Let's listen to the bass I've created, emulating Galantis' bass line. So I would say there's 3 key areas you need to cover when creating a big dirty bass sound: subs, high frequency harmonics, and stereo width. Stereo width isn't essential, but it can contribute to the perceived size of your bass sound. So let's start with the sub. A sub can be anything from a simple sine wave playing in the correct octave to provide weight to the sound, and it's usually relatively clean. Triangles and sawtooths work well too, but carry higher frequency harmonics, so you might need a low-pass filter to clean them up and get them all subby. For my bass sub though, I use the retro synth in FM mode. You can get some great subby sounds with this plugin. I set the FM slider to 0 and the carrier slider to 0.5, ensuring the sound was subby but had a slight modulated character, but nothing too crazy. To add some attitude, I increased the harmonic, inharmonic and shape sliders to achieve a very subtle overdrive. This gave the sound a bit of grit to help add edge to the bass line. Adding grit also brings the sound further forward. Adding harmonics to the sound caused the high frequencies to be too dominant, and as this is all about the sub, Retro's low-pass filter came in handy to remove some of the unwanted top end. Finally, some low cut from logicx EQ and subtle compression keeps the bass pinned down, keeping it nice and even throughout the track. To create something similar, it should take you no time at all. Get a subby sound, maybe add some higher frequency harmonics, tame the top end and calm the super lows, and you'll be there. So with the sub sorted, it's time to really add some dirty attitude to dirty the sound up and make it more aggressive. So here's what I did. I loaded 2 new tracks, one with the retro synth and the other with Alchemy. You could use any instruments you want, but these are the ones I chose. To gain complete control over the width of the sound, I switched each channel to stereo pan and placed them in mono. This meant I could eventually place the sounds wherever I wanted in the stereo field without worrying about the parts being too wide. Next, I created a very simple distorted bass in Alchemy by clearing the patch from the File menu, selecting a sawtooth and pulse wave in slots A and B. From the oscillator controls, I simply adjusted the phase, sync, and number dials to make the part bigger. These dials are great at adding bigness. Let me show you what I mean. So once I'd adjusted both parts, it was time to dirty the sound up. So I simply added some distortion from the Effects tab to really drive the sound hard. Once that was done, it was simply a case of adding a low cut filter with the channel EQ to remove all the lows. The whole idea about this bass is it's to add high frequency harmonics agitated by the distortion. So you don't want the part to have too much low end. Otherwise it will clutter the sub and you'll end up with a horrible, muddy mess. Let's check out the sound. Once Alchemy was sorted, it was on to bass number 3, and for this I used retro in analog mode. I adjusted both oscillators, tweaked the other mod dials until I found something that worked. My aim was to create something similar to the Alchemy bass I've just talked about, but I'll get to why I did that in a minute. I find retro an easy synth to work with. Simply diving in and adjusting the dials can quickly provide lots of unique sounds. Of course, there's theory behind how all this works, but for this quick tips, we don't have time to do an overview, so let's move on. What really gave this sound its grit and attitude was the bit crusher. I drove the signal hard so that it really distorted. Check it out. Increasing the drive dial adds volume, so I compensated by bringing the channel fader down. You could use the gain plugin to pull the level down, but I'm lazy and just drop the channel fader. Finally, I cut the lows to drop out the bass end, boosted the high mids to make it feel more aggressive. This really pulls the sound forward in the mix. Our ears are most sensitive to high mid frequencies, which is why sounds that are boosted in this area often feel like they're the parts that sit forward in the mix. So to make this bass really big, I needed to do one last thing. Remember, I switched the pan to stereo pan and dragged them into mono and made both synths sound similar to each other. Well, this enabled me to pan the two high frequency basses left and right, leaving the sub in the middle. This does two things. It separates the bass sound at the same time as leaving the sub in the center of the mix, providing a strong mono signal as well as a wide stereo sound from the other bass parts that isn't cluttered by all the sounds sitting on top of each other. The result of all these moves is I end up with a powerful, gritty, dirty, but clear bass part, if that makes sense. Also, by separating them into three bass sounds, it gives me the ability to use them in different ways throughout the song. Check it out. So the last move was to add a compressor to the bass bus, which all three bass tracks run into. The compressor was then sidechained to the kick drum so that the whole track then pumped in time with the music, much like the Galantis track. Check it out. So, there you have it, an easy way to make a big, dirty bass. If you want to create something similar, just remember three things: sub, which is often a cleaner bass sound, high frequency distortion, and stereo width. And you'll be as dirty as me. And that's it. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please do subscribe to my channel and visit my website masteringinlogic.com, where I teach professional audio mastering using nothing but Logic Pro X.